The first thing I saw after the crash was red light flashing across a woman's face. Not an angel, not my mother, not some deep spiritual vision. A paramedic with a dark braid tucked behind one ear, one knee planted on the wet asphalt, two fingers pressed against my neck like she had every right to check whether my stubborn heart was still working. Then she said my name. Owen Price. I blinked up at her, trying to place her through the rain, the sirens, and the ringing in my left ear. She leaned closer, and the corner of her mouth lifted. You still never call for help, do you? That was how I found out my high school crush had become the woman assigned to keep me alive. I was 34 years old enough to know better, and apparently still young enough to think I could handle a car wreck by myself. I worked as a sound engineer for a small live music venue in Portland, which meant my normal injuries involved burnt fingertips, bad coffee, and carrying speakers that weighed more than some marriages. That night, I had been driving home after a late show. It was raining sideways, the kind of rain that made every traffic light look smeared. A delivery van slid through a red, clipped my front bumper, and spun my old Subaru into a street lamp. The sensible thing would have been to sit still and wait. I did not do the sensible thing. I got out, told the terrified van driver I was fine, and started picking pieces of my headlight out of the gutter like a man trying to tidy up before company came over. I even waved off a woman who asked if she should call 911. I'm good, I told her. That was the last lie I told before my knees folded. Now I was flat on my back with rain soaking through my shirt, an oxygen mask hovering near my face, and Tessa Monroe looking down at me. Tessa Monroe. In high school, she had worn paint-stained jeans, played goalkeeper with terrifying focus, and once told our English teacher that Romeo and Juliet would have survived if either of them had owned a basic communication skill. I had been a skinny kid with too much responsibility and one secret. I was completely, quietly, painfully in love with her. I never told her. Of course I didn't. Back then, my dad had disappeared in the usual boring way men disappear. No dramatic goodbye, no note, just an empty chair at dinner and bills my mother pretended not to cry over. I learned early that needing people was expensive, so I became useful, reliable. The guy who stayed late, fixed things, carried boxes, made jokes, and never asked anyone for anything. Tessa used to see through it. Apparently, she still did. Can you hear me clearly? She asked. Unfortunately, I said, because my mouth had always been faster than my survival instincts. Her eyes flicked over my face. They were the same deep brown I remembered, but steadier now. Older. Not hard exactly, just trained by too many nights where seconds mattered. Any neck pain? Only my pride. That isn't covered by insurance. I would have laughed if my ribs hadn't immediately filed a complaint. She placed a hand on my shoulder, firm and professional. Don't move. Bossy. Alive people get to complain about my tone. There it was. The same Tessa, sharp, warm, impossible to impress. I hated that my heart noticed before the monitor did. Another paramedic, a broad guy with silver in his beard, crouched near my legs. BP's a little low. Tessa's expression changed by half an inch, but I saw it. The joke left her eyes. Owen, she said, and my name sounded different in her mouth now. Less like attendance being called, more like a hand reaching across a room. Did you lose consciousness? I'm gonna say no because it sounds better. Try the truth. The truth is less flattering. Most of mine is. That got me. Even with rain in my eyelashes and embarrassment crawling up my neck, I smiled. For 1 second, the whole street blurred around her. The ambulance lights, the cracked bumper, the people standing under umbrellas. All of it slipped back, and I was 17 again, standing by the gym doors with a broken watch in my palm while Tessa laughed at something her friend said. I remembered wanting to walk over. I remembered staying exactly where I was. She shined a light into my eyes. Pupils are responsive. Good, I was hoping to keep both. Ambitious. I've matured. She gave me a look. Fine, I said. I've aged. Her mouth softened, but only for a second. We're taking you in. I can call a ride. You can barely remember how gravity works. I don't want to make a big deal out of it. That did it. Tessa stopped moving. Rain tapped against the plastic edge of her medical bag. Her partner glanced at her, then wisely looked away. She leaned in just enough that nobody else could hear her over the engine and weather. You were like this in school too, she said, bleeding through your shirt after that shop class accident and telling everyone it was red paint. I stared at her. She remembered that? I didn't think anyone noticed. I said, I noticed a lot of things. The way she said it went straight through the years between us. Then her gloved hand slid under my shoulder as they eased me onto the stretcher, and I had the ridiculous thought that out of every way I could have ended up in Tessa Monroe's arms, this was easily the least dignified. She climbed into the ambulance beside me. The doors shut, muting the rain into a dull roar. Inside, everything was close. Too close. Her knee brushed the stretcher. Her braid had come loose near her cheek. She smelled like rain, antiseptic, and peppermint gum. She wrapped a blood pressure cuff around my arm. Emergency contact? She asked. I looked at the ceiling. Owen. I don't really have one. Her hands paused. It was a small pause. A professional pause. But it landed harder than the crash. No wife? She asked. No. Girlfriend? No. Family nearby? My mom passed 3 years ago. Her face changed again. Not pity. I would have hated pity. This was quieter than that. I'm sorry, she said. I swallowed. Thanks. The ambulance pulled away from the curb. My cracked car disappeared through the rear window, a sad little heap under the streetlight. Tessa tightened the cuff. Any allergies? Commitment, paperwork, and mushrooms. Mushrooms? They know what they did. She tried not to smile and failed. For a few seconds, the air shifted. It wasn't high school nostalgia anymore. It was a woman sitting beside a man who had built an entire life around not needing anyone, and both of us knew she had just found the weak spot. Then my phone buzzed in the pocket of my wet jacket. Tessa reached for it because my hands were strapped under a blanket and a monitor clip. Want me to ignore it? She asked. Probably. The screen lit up before I could stop it. One notification, from a calendar reminder I had forgotten to delete. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., Tessa Monroe's art show opening. Don't chicken out this time. Tessa looked from the phone to me. The ambulance seemed to get very quiet. Her voice dropped. Owen, she said, holding my phone in her hand. Why do you have my name in your calendar? There are moments in a man's life when honesty is the best policy. There are other moments when he is concussed, strapped to a stretcher wearing one shoe, and the woman he once wrote bad poetry about is holding proof that he planned to attend her art show. I chose cowardice. That could be another Tessa Monroe, I said. She stared at me. A very common name, I added weakly. In Portland? Nationally. Owen. The way she said my name made the heart monitor betray me with one loud, enthusiastic beep. Tessa's eyes flicked to the screen. Machine's defective, I said. It's brand new. Budget cuts affect quality control. Her lips pressed together, but not before I saw the smile trying to escape. Then the ambulance hit a pothole and pain flashed sharp under my ribs. I sucked in a breath. Tessa's face changed instantly. Pain level? 3. Try again. 6. Again. 8 when you look disappointed. Her hand moved with practiced calm, checking the monitor, adjusting the blanket, touching my wrist. Professional, capable, infuriatingly gentle. Her partner, the silver-bearded paramedic, glanced back from the front. 5 minutes out. Thanks, Mateo, she called. Then her attention returned to me. You knew about my show. I stared at the ceiling of the ambulance like it might open and offer divine escape. I saw a flyer at the venue, I said. That much was true. Last week, after loading out a folk band with more mandolins than sense, I had stopped at the corkboard, near the back entrance. There she was, in print. Tessa Monroe, Mixed Media Exhibition, Fault Lines. I'd stood there holding a coil of cable, 17 again, and completely useless. You were going to come? She asked. I considered standing near the door and leaving before you saw me. That tracks. Harsh, but fair. She set my phone on the side bench and crossed her arms. We graduated 16 years ago. Time is aggressive. You never once reached out. Neither did you. I didn't have a reminder in my calendar telling me not to chicken out. That shut me up. The siren wailed through traffic. Rain streaked the back window in silver lines. My head throbbed, my ribs ached, and somehow the worst injury was being known. Tessa's voice softened. Why now? I could have lied again. I had a whole toolbox of them. Busy, curious, just happened to see it. Wanted to support local art like some emotionally evolved citizen. Instead, I said, because I heard you were back. Her eyes searched mine. I didn't know you'd left, I added. Seattle, she said. For a while, then training, then bad shifts, bad timing, and one extremely bad engagement. The word landed between us. Engagement. I looked away too fast, which made her notice too much. Relax, she said. I didn't marry him. Wasn't asking. No, you were doing that thing where your face tries to be furniture. I closed my eyes. I have missed your compassion. You missed a lot more than that. The ambulance slowed, then turned. Hospital lights flashed through the window. Tessa began unhooking equipment with efficient hands. When we get inside, they'll check you for a concussion and possible rib fracture. You may need imaging. Sounds romantic. It's really not. Then you've been to the wrong hospitals. She shook her head, but her expression wasn't laughing anymore. As the ambulance backed into the bay, she leaned closer. Owen, why didn't you ever say anything? My pulse kicked again. This time, she didn't look at the monitor. I knew what she meant. Not the art show, not the calendar. The years. The cafeteria glances. The almost conversations by the lockers. The winter formal where I danced with her friend Mina because Tessa had gone home early, and I spent the whole song watching the gym doors. The truth was humiliating in its simplicity. I thought needing something made you a burden, I said. Her gaze held mine. And you needed me? The ambulance doors opened before I could answer. Cold air rushed in. Mateo and an ER nurse pulled the stretcher out into the bright ambulance bay, and the question went with us, unanswered, rolling over wet concrete. Inside the emergency department, everything became fluorescent and loud. A nurse named Priya asked me questions. A resident with kind eyes and terrible shoes checked my pupils. Someone cut my shirt, which felt excessive until I saw the bruising blooming across my side like spilled ink. Tessa stayed near the foot of the bed longer than she had to. I noticed because noticing Tessa had always been my most consistent personality trait. Finally, Priya looked at her. You offload to us? Tessa nodded. 34-year-old male, MVA, brief loss of consciousness reported by bystander, left rib pain, low initial blood pressure, improved en route. Denied loss of consciousness, I said. Reported by bystander, Tessa repeated. Betrayal has many uniforms. Priya smiled. You two know each other? No, I said at the exact same time Tessa said, yes. Priya's eyebrows lifted. Tessa cleared her throat. High school. Ah, Priya said, in a tone that contained an entire novel. I wished for another pothole to swallow me. Tessa stepped back. I should get the rig cleaned. Something in me tightened. Ridiculous. She was doing her job. She had a whole city of injured idiots to rescue. Right, I said. Thanks for, keeping me alive. Try making it harder next time. I'll brainstorm. She turned to leave, then stopped at the curtain. For a second, I saw the girl from the soccer field and the woman in uniform overlap perfectly. My show opens tomorrow, she said. I may be unavailable due to being hit by a van. You'll live. That your medical opinion? That's my hope. Then she walked out. 2 hours later, after scans, pain meds, and a lecture about not refusing help from strangers, I was diagnosed with a mild concussion and 2 cracked ribs. No driving, no working heavy equipment. No heroics. Priya handed me discharge papers. Who's picking you up? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Her expression sharpened. Mr. Price, I can call a rideshare. With a concussion? No. I'll sit very carefully. No. She left to check something, which sounded suspiciously like find an adult. When the curtain moved again, it wasn't Priya. It was Tessa out of her rain jacket, hair damp around her face, holding my wrecked phone and my remaining shoe. I'm off shift, she said. My heart did the stupid thing again. She lifted the shoe. And apparently, I'm your emergency contact now. You cannot appoint yourself my emergency contact, I said. Tessa set my shoe on the bed. Apparently I can if the patient keeps trying to leave the hospital like a raccoon with a gym membership. I have been very cooperative. You asked Dr. Amani if cracked ribs were more of a guideline than a diagnosis. I was gathering information. You were looking for loopholes. She held up my discharge papers. You need someone to take you home, stay nearby tonight, and make sure you don't fall asleep and accidentally become a cautionary tale. I live alone. I gathered. There it was again. Not pity. Worse, concern. I tried to sit up too fast. Pain punched through my side and stole the argument right out of my lungs. Tessa was beside me before I could pretend otherwise, one hand braced lightly against my shoulder. Slow, she said. I hated how much I wanted to lean into that single syllable. I can call my neighbor, I muttered. Name? Mrs. Pember. Does Mrs. Pember drive? No, but she owns a very judgmental cat. Owen, I sighed. Fine. I don't have anyone to call. Tessa's face went still. I expected her to say something sharp, some clean little joke to save us both from the heaviness I'd just dropped at her feet. Instead, she reached for my jacket. Then you have me tonight. My chest tightened for reasons unrelated to the crash. Tessa, you don't have to… I know. She glanced at me. That's usually why it matters. I had no defense against that. 20 minutes later, I was in the passenger seat of her old blue hatchback, holding a hospital bag with my ruined shirt inside. Rain whispered against the windshield. The dashboard smelled faintly of coffee, cedar, and the peppermint gum she kept chewing, like it was the only thing between her and the end of civilization. She drove carefully, not slow, carefully, like she trusted the road but not the people on it. Address? She asked, I told her. She gave me a sideways look. You still live on Hawthorne? Different apartment, same bad parking. I used to take the bus past there. I know. The silence that followed was immediate and suspicious. I closed my eyes. That sounded less creepy in my head. You knew my bus route? You sketched on the number 14 after school, window seat, left side if you could get it. Her fingers flexed on the wheel. I rushed on because apparently concussion had removed the part of my brain responsible for dignity. I wasn't following you. I just worked at the hardware store near that stop. I remember. You do? You wore that green apron like it had personally wronged you. Despite myself, I laughed, then winced. Serves you right, she said, but her voice was warm. At my building, she refused to let me carry anything heavier than my own shame. The elevator smelled like wet wool and someone's garlic dinner. By the time we reached my door, sweat had gathered at my hairline from the effort of pretending pain was a mild inconvenience. Tessa noticed, of course. Keys, she said, I can unlock a door. Your hands are shaking. They're excited. Owen. I handed her the keys. My apartment was not embarrassing exactly. It was clean in the way a man's home is clean when no one ever comes over. Dishes done, books stacked, furniture chosen for function, not invitation. A guitar leaned in one corner. A wall of records. One framed photo of my mom laughing at Cannon Beach, hair flying wild in the wind. Tessa stopped in front of it. She had a great smile, she said. Yeah. My throat tightened. She did. I remember her from graduation. She brought flowers and cried before they even called your name. She cried at commercials with dogs in them. Tessa smiled softly. Sounds right. I sat on the couch very slowly. She moved around my kitchen like someone fighting the instinct to ask permission. Water, pain pills, crackers. A dish towel wrapped around an ice pack because I apparently owned no actual medical supplies beyond expired cough drops. When she handed everything to me, I said, "You've done enough." She sat in the chair across from me. "Take the pills." "I'm serious." "So am I. I don't want you feeling responsible for me." Her eyes met mine. "I don't." The answer hit harder than expected. "I want to be here," she said. All the air changed. I looked down at the orange pill bottle in my palm. "Why?" "For someone smart, you ask terrible questions." "Tessa." She leaned back, arms folded, gaze steady. "Because in senior year, I waited 3 months for you to ask me to that spring dance." My brain went perfectly blank. "What?" "3 months," she repeated. "Mina got so tired of hearing about it, she threatened to ask you for me. She told me you liked Aaron Bell. She lied because I was embarrassed. I carried Aaron Bell's amp at the talent show and wished him food poisoning." Tessa laughed, startled and bright. I stared at her, stunned by the sound, then she sobered. "I thought you didn't want me. I thought you were the kind of person who left." The words came out before I could stop them. Her expression softened, but there was hurt in it too. "I wasn't your father." "I know." "Do you?" I didn't answer. She stood, and for one panicked second I thought she was leaving. Instead, she crossed to the bookshelf and picked up a small ceramic bird with a cracked wing. "My mom made that," I said. "I remember this." Tessa turned it gently in her hands. "You brought it to art class when we had to draw something meaningful." "You remember too much." "No," she said. "I remember what mattered." The room went quiet. Then her phone buzzed. She checked it, and her mouth tightened. "Station?" I asked. "No, gallery manager. They need my final confirmation for tomorrow." "You're opening." She nodded. "You should go." "It can wait." "No, it can't." I forced myself straighter. "You worked for this. You are not missing it because I picked a fight with a street lamp." She studied me. "You really were going to come?" "Yes." "Why?" I breathed carefully. "Because I wanted to see who you became." Her eyes shone just a little before she looked away. Then she placed the ceramic bird back on the shelf and said, "Then rest up, Owen." "For what?" "For tomorrow." Her smile was small, daring, and dangerous. "I'm taking you with me." "You are absolutely not taking me to your gallery opening," I said. Tessa stood in my living room with her hands on her hips, looking far too pleased for a woman threatening a concussed man with culture. "You wanted to see who I became." "From a respectful distance. Possibly behind a plant." "There are plants at the gallery." "Tessa." "Owen." "I have 2 cracked ribs. And a chair will be provided. I'm supposed to rest." "You rested all day." "I watched 4 documentaries and lost an argument with a throw pillow." "Sounds restorative." She had gone home around midnight after making me promise to wake myself every few hours, then text her proof of life. I sent one message at 3:10 a.m., still annoyingly alive, and received back a thumbs up, a skull, and 5 seconds later, "You better be." By morning, she had appeared at my door with coffee, bagels, and the kind of determination usually reserved for hostage negotiators. Now it was 6 in the evening. She had changed out of her uniform into black trousers and a deep green blouse that made her eyes look warmer, darker. Her hair was down, loose over her shoulders. I was wearing my least wrinkled button-down because apparently my spine had no loyalty. "This is a bad idea," I said. "Probably." She handed me my jacket. "But it's mine." The gallery was in a renovated brick building on the east side, all tall windows and polished concrete. Warm light spilled onto the sidewalk. Through the glass, I saw people holding wine, nodding seriously at walls, pretending they understood texture. I stopped outside. Tessa noticed immediately. "Pain?" "No." "Dizziness?" "No." "Then what?" I looked at the sign by the door. "Tessa Monroe. Fault lines." "I'm suddenly aware I have no idea how to be in your life," I said. Her expression shifted. For once, she didn't tease me. "You start by walking through the door," she said. So I did. Inside, the room hummed with voices. Tessa was swallowed almost instantly by greetings and congratulations. A woman with silver earrings hugged her. A tall man in a linen jacket kissed the air near her cheek. Someone handed her flowers. I stood near a wall, trying not to breathe too deeply. Then I saw the work. Her pieces were not pretty in the easy way. They were layered canvases, torn paper, stitching, metal leaf, maps cut apart and put back together wrong. Beautiful, yes, but wounded. Roads ended in oceans. Houses floated above fault lines. A red thread ran through several pieces like a pulse refusing to quit. I moved slowly from one to the next. The largest canvas hung at the far end. It showed a figure standing outside a lit window, one hand raised but not knocking. My stomach tightened. The title card read, "Almost." Tessa came to stand beside me. Neither of us spoke for a while. Finally, I said, "This one feels rude." She laughed under her breath. It was cheaper than therapy. Was it about me? She looked at the painting. Partly. What's the other part? Me, waiting, pretending I wasn't. I swallowed. The gallery noise seemed to fade until there was only the two of us and a painted hand that never touched the glass. "I'm sorry," I said. She turned toward me. "I know that doesn't fix anything," I continued, "and I know we were kids. But I made assumptions because they were safer than asking. I let you become a story where I was always the one left behind, even though you never actually left me." Tessa's eyes glistened, but her voice stayed steady. "I did leave eventually. After graduation. For your life. That isn't the same." "No." She looked back at the canvas. "But I think part of me hoped you'd stop me." The truth of it hurt. "I wouldn't have known how," I said. "I know." That was the problem. She did know. She had always seen the fracture lines before I did. A man approached before I could say more. He had a neat beard, expensive shoes, and the easy confidence of someone used to being forgiven. "Tess," he said. Her shoulders stiffened. "Not much. Enough." "Graham," she replied. Ah, the bad engagement, I guessed, had arrived in loafers. His eyes slid to me. "Didn't know you were bringing someone. I didn't know I needed to notify you." He smiled like she'd amused him. Still sharp. I disliked him immediately. Tessa's fingers brushed my sleeve, not quite taking my arm. "Graham, this is Owen Price. Owen, Graham Sutter." We shook hands. His grip was firm in the performative way. "You buy art?" he asked me. I mostly try not to fall into it. Tessa coughed into her wine. Graham's smile thinned. "Interesting." "No, not really," I said. Tessa gave me a warning look, but there was laughter in it. Graham turned back to her. "The work is strong, more personal than your old pieces. Pain cells, apparently." The air cooled. I saw the hitland, saw Tessa absorb it with the practiced grace of someone who had spent too long making room for his opinions. Before I could think better of it, I said, "That's a strange way to compliment someone." Graham looked at me. "Excuse me?" "I mean, if you meant to compliment her, you took the scenic route through condescension." Tessa's hand closed around my wrist, not stopping me, holding on. Graham's face hardened. "And you are. The guy with two cracked ribs and very limited patience." For half a second, I thought he might swing, which would have been medically inconvenient. Instead, he gave a short laugh. "Good luck, Tess," he said. "You always did like projects." Then he walked away. My pulse pounded. Tessa slowly released my wrist. "You should not antagonize men while injured." I wasn't planning to. He inspired me. She stared at me, and then a laugh broke out of her, small at first, then helpless. She covered her mouth, eyes bright, shoulders shaking. I grinned despite the ache in my side. When she finally caught her breath, she whispered, "He hated that." I tried to be concise. "You called him condescending?" "He was." "You defended me." The laughter left her face, replaced by something vulnerable enough to undo me. "I know you can defend yourself," I said. "I know." Her voice softened. "But you stayed." I thought of the painting, the raised hand, the door. This time I reached for her. Carefully, because my ribs were a disaster and my courage was new, I took her hand. "I'm trying," I said. Tessa looked down at our joined hands. Then her thumb moved once across my knuckles, gentle as a promise. Across the room, someone called her name. The gallery wanted her back. The world always did. But before she let go, she leaned close and whispered, "After this, don't disappear." I met her eyes. "I won't." And for the first time all night, I believed myself. I kept my promise for exactly 47 minutes. Then I disappeared. Not dramatically, not in the emotional sense. In the very literal sense that I went to the restroom, took one look at my reflection, and realized I was pale enough to qualify as gallery lighting. My ribs throbbed. My head pulsed. My shirt clung damply to my back. "Idiot," I told the mirror. "You said it, not me," Tessa said from the doorway. I turned too fast and regretted it immediately. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "Before you panic, it's a single restroom." I wasn't panicking. You were apologizing to plumbing. I needed a neutral audience. Her face softened, but worry lined her eyes. "You're hurting." "I'm fine." Tessa just looked at me. The old instinct rose up: smile, deflect, make it smaller. Be easy to care about by needing nothing. But I had told her I wouldn't disappear. So I leaned one hand on the sink and said, "I'm not fine. I'm in a lot of pain and I didn't want to ruin your night." Something in her expression broke open. "You don't ruin things by needing help," she said. I tried to laugh, but it came out rough. "I'm still learning that." "I know." She came closer. "But you don't get to learn it alone." I looked at her then, really looked. Not at the girl I had missed or the fantasy I had carried around like a pressed flower in an old book. At the woman standing in front of me. Tired. Brilliant. Brave enough to make art from the places that hurt. Brave enough to ask me to stay. "I should have knocked," I said. Her brow furrowed. "What?" "The painting, almost." My throat tightened. "I should have knocked." Tessa's eyes filled. "For what it's worth," she whispered, "I would have opened the door." I reached for her hand. This time, neither of us let go first. She drove me home before the opening ended. When I protested, she informed me that her art would survive without her for 30 minutes, but I was one stubborn sneeze away from becoming a medical incident. At my apartment, she helped me settle on the couch, set alarms for my medication, and taped a note to my coffee table that read, "Call Tessa before doing something heroic and stupid." I kept that note. For 3 weeks, she came by after shifts when she could. Sometimes she brought soup. Sometimes she fell asleep in my armchair still wearing her station sweatshirt. Sometimes we didn't talk about the past at all. We watched terrible movies, argued about music, and learned the strange new language of being honest before fear could translate for us. I called her once because I dropped a jar of pasta sauce and couldn't bend to clean it up. It felt like defeat. She arrived with paper towels and said, "Look at you, personal growth through marinara." I loved her a little then. No, that wasn't true. I admitted I loved her then. There's a difference. Our first kiss happened 2 months later, outside the hardware store where I used to work. We had gone there because Tessa needed picture wire, and I needed to prove I could enter a building without pretending I was 17. The bus stop was still there. The number 14 pulled up just as rain began to fall. Tessa looked at the window seats, then at me. "You really watched for me?" "Every day I worked." Coward. Historically, yes. And now? I stepped closer, heart hammering like it had in the ambulance, only this time no machine was there to report me. "Now I'm asking if I can kiss you." Her smile trembled. "Finally," she said. So I did. 6 months later, my emergency contact form had her name on it, in my own handwriting. By the following spring, half my apartment had become hers in small, undeniable ways. Peppermint gum in the kitchen drawer, paint on one of my old shirts, a second toothbrush, a pair of boots by the door that I tripped over constantly and complained about with deep affection. Tessa still worked nights. I still mixed sound. We were not magically healed people. I still sometimes said, "I'm fine," when I wasn't. She still sometimes expected love to come with conditions. But now, when the old fears rose, we tried to say them out loud. One rainy evening, almost a year after the crash, We walked past the intersection where the van had hit me. The street lamp had been replaced. My Subaru had not. Tessa slipped her hand into mine. You ever think about that night? She asked. I looked at the wet pavement, the blur of red brake lights, the city shining broken and beautiful around us. Yeah, I said. I think about how I tried to wave off help, and help showed up anyway. She leaned her head against my shoulder, careful of the place my ribs had healed. You still never call for help, do you? She murmured. I lifted our joined hands and kissed her knuckles. I do now. And under the same rain that had once found me bleeding in the street, I walked home with the woman I should have reached for years ago. Her hand warm in mine, the door ahead of us lit and waiting. What would you have done if something like my high school crush was the paramedic who picked me up? You still never call for help, do you? Happened to you? And have you ever mistaken kindness for something your heart was too afraid to name? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.